So my name is Abhay Das, and I'm working for the Museum of the Vedic Planetarium. We all know that we have the big temple being constructed, and even though we don't hear so much about it, the central focus of the dome, hanging in the main dome, the central deity, is a chandelier, which is going to demonstrate the fifth canto cosmology of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the structure of the sacred universe that we can't see with our regular vision. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to speak for about 40 minutes, and then I wanted to take 20 minutes of questions. What I'd like, my intention for this presentation is that most devotees don't fully grasp what is going on. What is it about? Well, why is there a planetarium temple? Why did Prabhupada have us build the largest structure in the world, practically, religious structure, and put the Bhagavatam fifth canto in it? So what I'd like to do is explain why this is going to be the center of the headquarters of ISKCON for thousands of years. Where is this coming from? What was Prabhupada's intention? And I'd like to give you, so you'll be able to explain it, understand it yourself, and explain it to others who ask you about it. And then I'd like to give you just a little overview of actually the Vedic cosmos and how it relates to our Earth globe, where our Earth sits in the Vedic cosmos. Sometimes devotees think that it's metaphorical. They don't know how to understand the description of outer space in the Bhagavatam, because it can be very fantastic.
Prabhuji, I just like to ask devotees, because I'm seeing that the voice is going a little in and out. Is it very clear to the rest of you? Maybe you, if you can come a little closer to the microphone, might be a little better.
Sure.
I think it is better.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So it's important to understand that the Bhagavatam is not allegorical. Everything that is described in the Bhagavatam is real. Even though it may seem fantastic to us, sometimes we're a little spoiled when we read about NASA or modern science explaining what space is. But we accept the Vedas as perfect. And most phenomena that is explained in the Bhagavatam is beyond normal human perception. So, if we look at the Bhagavatam, which is our scripture for Kali Yuga, so it begins in the first canto, right? So, those of you familiar with the Bhagavatam, the first canto is setting the stage for the rest of the Bhagavatam. What happens is the sages from around India have a vision of Kali Yuga. So out of concern for the people, they all congregate to protect the people living in Kali. So they go to Namashranya. Namashranya is the central hub of the universe. And it is a place where sacrifice, if done for others, is multiplied thousands of times. So they do a sacrifice, and then who is sitting there? Suta Goswami. Now, what is special about Suta Goswami? He is not just senior and not just of a exalted character, but he was also sitting there when Sukadeva Goswami spoke Bhagavatam to Maharaj Pariksha. So he is most qualified. So the sages, headed by Shaunaka Rishi, they sit him on the seat and they ask him, what is the best knowledge that a human can know? And then Suta explains, starts to tell the story of the end of the Mahabharata, the disappearance of Lord Krishna, and the cursing of Maharaj Pariksha. That is first canto. Then Sukadeva Goswami, he shows up and he says to the king, I'm going to stay with you for the 7 days for your curse. And I'm going to give you the knowledge that you'll have to have before you die. So that's the first canto. Sukadeva Goswami is there, Parikshit Maharaj is there, And now we go to the second canto. The second canto is actually the beginning of the Bhagavatam. It's the beginning of Sukadev Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. So the very first chapter of the second canto is first step in God realization. This is the beginning. So what is the first step in God realization according to Srimad Bhagavatam? So Sukadev Goswami, he glorifies spiritual masters. He talks about the unfortunate situation of people in the age of Kali. And then very quickly, the first thing he says to Maharaj Parikshit is that in order to begin devotional service, you have to see the universe, the Virat Rupa, as the body of Vishnu. So this is critical. This is Bhagavatam beginning, first step in God realization. It's cosmology. It's not first canto. Sutta is giving us a kind of advance on the rest of the Bhagavatam about one has to perform uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service. So here we go. He's saying to Maharaj Parikshit, you have to look at the universe as the body of Vishnu. That is how you will begin devotional service. And then what does he do? He lists, he says that the demigods are the Brahmins, and the mountains are the bones, and that the rivers are the veins. And he explains in about 18 shlokas, the sun and moon are his eyes, his illusory energy is a smile. He gives the description of how to see the universe as the body of God. Then in the final verse of this chapter, Prabhupada says in the purport that scholars and philosophers and scientists have a very hard time understanding the personal nature of God. Therefore, they have more of an inclination to look at the universe. So they should study the universe as the body of God to begin their devotional service. So that is it. That's the Bij mantra for the TOBP. Why Prabhupada is given the order to make our headquarters in this huge dome structure, having the fifth canto Virat Rupa, the situation of the planets. So that is really the secret why this temple is being built. It is one of the early devotees, Ravindra Swarup, who was connected to the TOBP. He once said that there is the book Bhagavatam and there's the building Bhagavatam. So the TOBP is the building Bhagavatam. It is the beginning for every prophet said that the world would come, and they'll come and they'll be able to begin their devotional service by looking at the Virat Rupa, the structure of the universe. So the actual consistency of the chandelier, Prabhupada wrote a letter to a Mr. Dani around, I believe, 1976, and he explained what he wanted in the planetarium. So it is the classic structure. You have, of course, Ananta Shesh at the bottom, and then he's speaking Bhagavatam to the four Kumaras. Then as you go up, you have Sutala, Vitala, Patala. You have all the Patalas. Now, it's important to understand, sometimes people have the idea these are hells for punishment. They're not. All the lower planetary planets are heavenly, but they're hellish in the sense that they're devoid of God. That's why they're called subterranean heavenly. But their beauty surpasses that of Indra's gardens. The beauty of the Patala planets exceed the beauty of the Devas. So all of these planets are where envious, asuric, rakshasic entities live and enjoy. And they sometimes go up to the earth plane, Bhumandala, to cause trouble. And then as you go up, there's Nagaloka, below the earth planet. This is abode of snake-like people who have mystic power, and they can come to this reality, and they can disguise themselves as humans. Sometimes you hear in conspiracy theories that reptilians are controlling the world, right? It's actually true, according to Bhagavatam. And Krishnadas Kaviraj, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that when Mahaprabhu was in Puri, that Nagas would come disguised as humans to take darshan of Lord Chaitanya. So if you accept Krishnadas Kaviraj, then you have to believe it. So then we go up. Now we come to the center of the universe. So the center of the Vedic universe is Jambudvip. Jambudvip is a mountain structured like a baby. So a baby is a sacrificial arena, like you see in Mayapur with the bricks. So Jambudvip is like a baby, and it's got people living on it. It's a heavenly planet. And then coming off the top of Jambudvip is Meru, which is like an upside down mountain that's gold, reddish gold, which represents the flames. Jambudvip is like an altar, a sacrificial altar. And Meru is like the flames of the sacrificial altar. Now, around Jambudvip are 8 concentric islands with different types of oceans. Now, this is called Bhumandala. And these are all humans, different types of human beings. We on this planet, we exist on one of these round islands. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about flat Earth. So the reality is that the Earth is both flat and round. And you may say, how is that possible? It's a question of consciousness. It's a question of your ability to perceive. So what that means is, you and I, if we travel around the Earth globe, we'll just think that it's round. But a yogi sees it flat. He sees a different map. And that's Bhumandal terrain. So depending on your qualification, your perception of reality is different. So this is I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an understanding of the connection between the 5th canto universe and our Earth planet. You may ask, is there a bridge? Is there a connection? Yes, there is. It's in the Himalayas. The Himalayas are a gateway from our planet to the higher dimensions of the 5th canto. So on the bottom step of Jambudvip, near Bhumandala, it's the place of Kimpurushas. So when Bhima was walking up the Himalayas, he met Hanuman. So he accessed, you see, if we walk up the Himalayas, we may not find the gateway, but those that are qualified can access the alternate dimension of the 5th canto. That's why the Himalayas are called Deva Bhumi. They are an entranceway to the abode of the gods. Now, what's fascinating, intuitively, I was an English major in university, and for some reason, in all art, literature, in different cultures around the world, the Himalayas have always been, we don't know why, no other mountains in the world. We have many mountains on planet Earth, but for some reason in the human consciousness, people think the Himalayas are a mountain where you'll go up and you can enter a different dimension. And you will find people who can answer the questions of all the mysteries of life in the Himalayas. Even in the Marvel movies, you have Doctor Strange, like a yogi, he's going to the Himalayas and going through different portals to different dimensions. So where is this coming from? This is because Bhagavatam explains the Himalayas are a portal to higher dimensions. That's why it's in the human brain, because it's true. So even if we have no understanding of Vedic culture, people have this knowledge. It's intuitive. So I know this may be a little complicated, but I'm just going to try to, I don't have a lot of time. I want to share this with you. So I don't know if you're familiar with the prime meridian. So the prime meridian is where the day is supposed to begin. Now, it is originally in India. It originally goes through Kurukshetra and Ujjain. But the British, they kind of commandeered it. They put it in Greenwich, in England. But it's not the original prime meridian. The original prime meridian is in Kurukshetra. It runs through Kurukshetra region. That's why Krishna and the gopis went to Kurukshetra for the eclipse. Because the way that the sun and the moon are experienced in Kurukshetra, that is what is happening in Bhumandala and Meru. The same time that the moon and the sun, Chandra and Surya, their movements around Meru, in Kurukshetra, that they're experiencing the day like in the fifth canto cosmology. And what happens is it wraps around the earth, the time. As you get further away from Kurukshetra, you get further away from the time of Jambudvip. Now, what's very interesting is that Prabhupada explained why we don't see the fifth canto. He explained it's like a bull. A bull is grinding grain. It has a rope, it has blinders on, and it has a chain in its nose. Now it's walking forward. The bull thinks it's going straight, but it's not. It's going in circles because it has blinders on and it has a ring in its nose. So Prabhupada said that is our position when we try to explore. We are confined like the bull. That's why we go around the earth and it appears like a globe, but it has another dimension. So I know this is a lot of information to process, but if you can simply take from this talk that the purpose of the TOVP is to give people the opportunity to see the Virat Rupa as Sukadeva Goswami recommended. In the very first chapter of the first step of God realization, right at the beginning of this conversation with Raj Guru. You want to start devotional service, then you have to look at the universe as the body of Vishnu. This is the beginning of what Sukadeva Goswami says. So that is what Prabhupada envisioned, is that all the scholars, scientists, academics, they would come and look at the cosmos and see it as the body of Vishnu. So in the west wing of the temple, that's going to be a 4-story museum. And it is under the, Jayapataka Maharaj is the executive chairman. He's my boss. I'm on the creative team, one of the writers, and he for years has been working on this project. So right now we're in the process of designing exhibits and films for the museum to explain to the visitors about the fifth canto. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to throw it open if anybody has a question, because it's a lot of information.
I have a question. You mentioned about the lower planetary systems and how it's explained that these lower planetary systems are actually even more opulent than the heavenly planets. And Sutala, for example, is one of the planets where Bali Maharaj is in charge. So can you explain what are those planets? Because generally masses of the people think that when one has to suffer and is sent to lower planetary systems, they go to Pataloka, where either they're put into fire or oil or all the sufferings.
Yeah, so Yamaraj does not live below Bhumandala. Yamaraj's abode is above Meru. So let's go a little higher. So we talked about Jambudvip, we talked about Meru. So above Meru are the abode of the Devas. We have Brahma has a planet there, Indra, all the different demigods, the rulers of the 4 directions, and then off is Yamaloka. Yamaraj is off in that area. That's where punishments take place. It's not below us. This is something that is kind of confused. That is a different destination. And that you only get to from being on planet Earth. That's why it's above the Earth planet. The demons, they are not subject to the human laws of karma. They have a different relationship. There are different laws that affect them. They can do things that if we do it, we will be punished. They can do things, they get different reactions. They don't go to Yamaloka. That's for human beings to be judged by Yamaraj. So then if we go higher than that, then it's the nakshatras. It's the star systems. And going around Meru are the different planets. Surya, Chandra, Brihaspati, who is Jupiter, right? Shukracharya, who is Venus. Then we have Shani Dev, we have Buddha, Mercury, and we have Rahu and Ketu. There's 9 planets. And if you wanna understand the nature of the material world, Dukalayam Ashashvatam, consider that there are 9 planets, but only 2 of them are genuinely benefic. That's Venus and Jupiter. They're the only ones that generally just give good results. Mercury has a dual nature. Mercury is not fixed. Saturn gives distress. Even the sun is considered malefic in astrology. And you may say, how is the sun malefic? The sun is like the image of a good soul. You think of the sun as being, goodness, right? Like a king. How is it but? Remember, the king is like fire, according to Shastra. So fire can help you very, very much. Cook your food and keep you warm. But fire can destroy you. That's why one has to be very careful with the king. It's a double-edged sword. So the sun planet is also like that. It's not entirely benefic. So that's a good meditation. Out of 9 planets, only 2 are really only give good result. So that's a welcome to the material cosmos. And if we go higher, we get Janalok, Satyalok, Janalok, Kupalok. These are the abodes of the sages, people that practice celibacy and study the scripture and experience great happiness. Then you go higher, you get to Satyalok, which is where all the enlightened sages live. It's like Swarg. And Brahma has an abode as well. He lives on top of Meru. He also has an abode up there. And then at the highest point, it's the Milk Ocean, where Kshirodakshai Vishnu lives. And then above that, it's Maheshtam, and then beyond that, it's Haridam. You have Brahma Jyoti, you have the Vaikuntha planets, and you have Ayodhya, Dwarka, and Mathura, and Vrindavan. And then, of course, beyond Vrindavan, for Gaudiyas, you have Svetadweep, which is Lord Chaitanya's planet. So that's kind of an overview of just to get a general idea of the positioning of what's in the chandelier. Now, the Virat Rupa technically is a material manifestation. But when Prabhupada gave the order for the chandelier, he added Haridam. So the traditional Virat Rupa described by Sukadeva Goswami, it doesn't include the spiritual planets. Prabhupada said that. So it's kind of Prabhupada's ultimate Virat Rupa of the cosmos, and it's kind of crowned with the Vaikuntha and Goloka Vrindavan planets and Maheshtam. So it's absolute everything. When you come to the TOVP, everything in reality comes. So I thought it would also be good if I can give you something to take with you also, is that we have to understand, we have the Paravyoma, right? We have the Vaikuntha planets and the Goloka Vrindavan. So souls that are given free will and they want to misuse free will, they're put in a corner of the Paravyoma called the Mahatattva. It's a dark corner of the spiritual sky, and Mahavishnu lies down. And from his nose and his pores come universes. Then what happens? Creation is done by the Purusha avatars. I'd like you to be able to remember this. 3 Purusha avatars. So the first one is Mahavishnu. He lies down in the corner of the Paravyoma. So the universes come out of his skin. Then the second Purusha avatar comes. Who is that? Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He goes into each of those bubbles, millions of bubbles. He perspires and he lies down in that ocean, half filling each of those bubbles. So that's the second Purusha avatar. Then from his navel comes Brahma. Then Brahma manifests the universal tree, like the chandelier that I just explained. And in it, at the top, is the third Purusha avatar, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And what is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu? What does he do? He is Paramatma. He is super soul. So Rupa Goswami, in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, gives a very good way to remember these Purusha avatars. They are 3 super souls. Mahavishnu is the super soul of the entire Mahatattva. Try to remember this. Mahavishnu is the super soul of the whole Mahatattva, because he enters it, and it's from him that everything comes. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the super soul of each bubble, right? So he lies down in the universe, and Brahma then creates. Then the third Purusha avatar, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, he's the super soul in everyone's heart. So Rupa Goswami says this is a good way to remember this. The 3 super souls of the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. Could we have another question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. Gopal Govindas. Prabhuji, this is one of the topic very interesting as well as very confusing at the same time. But at the same time, the knowledge of like our knowledge is corrupted with the material science we have learned in our education.
Yes.
So correlating those things and coming to the conclusion is a difficult aspect here. However, I still have confusions and questions. So when I was reading and was discussing with other fellow devotees, the description, there is some description in Canto 2 that describes that the navel coming from the Lord, and Lord Brahma is residing on the lotus from the navel, right? And inside that navel is all the universe, all the planets are staying. So I'm not sure how it is to be reflected in the TOVP. And I'm also a little bit not able to visualize the mountain Meru you mentioned, where that sits in that case.
You know, the Bhagavatam will sometimes attempt to explain things in different perspectives. So that is one understanding, that the navel possesses all the planets and universes. But really, it's manifested by Brahma, who comes from the navel. So in that sense, the navel is the abode of the different universes and the planets. But for us, we have full faith in Srila Prabhupada. So he dictated how the chandelier should be laid out as I went through it, beginning with Ananta Shesh, going through the Patalas, through Nagaloka, to Bhumandala, to Jambudweep, to Meru, to the abode of the Devas, to the Nakshatras, and the Grahas, and the different Tapalokes, and then Satyalok and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, Maheshtam, Haridam. So that's our model. We understand that Prabhupada has a vision that we don't have. It's very interesting that Prabhupada, in his description, in one letter, he puts Brahma up near Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So many people, even in the management of the temple, were like, no, everybody knows Brahma's at the bottom, Mahavishnu's there, and you know, and Brahma comes from underneath. But we did some research in the Puranas, and we found it actually explains that Mahavishnu also lives underneath Shridakshay Vishnu. So we're just amazed that Prabhupada, whatever he spoke, is directly coming from Shastra. Every time we go deeply, even Prabhupada is just saying something seemingly, you know, without reference, it is exactly explained like that in the Shastra. We are so amazed by doing this work. Prabhupada was a transparent by a medium. He said, Krishna is sitting next to me, telling me what to put in the books. So either you believe Prabhupada or you don't. Prabhupada was once asked, do you ever have doubts, by a reporter? Prabhupada immediately said, how can I? And it means I'm a teacher. I'm not teacher if I have doubts. So Prabhupada told us that Krishna directly spoke to him. So that is our theology. If you're going to be a member of ISKCON, and this is not addressing your question. I'm just going in another direction because it's good for us to hear. Because sometimes people wonder, oh, is this like really necessary, this fifth canto stuff? Can't NASA tell us the truth? Right? But consider this. Consider this. Prabhupada was not a conspiracy theorist. Prabhupada was very sober, very serious. He never did anything whimsical. Never. Very grave. And Prabhupada said that they faked the moon landing, that they did not go to the moon, that it was a hoax in a laboratory in Arizona. So you can draw your own conclusions. I can tell you that it's very well known in technology that there's an algorithm for development of technology, like computer chips. So the human progress has always followed a rule that man will always try to do amazing acts, whether it's going to the lowest part of the ocean, going to the highest point of Mount Everest, doing something which nobody has done before. And as time goes on, it gets cheaper, it gets safer, it gets easier, and more people do it. That is the algorithm of human adventure. So consider that in 69 and 70, we were told that they went to the moon, and we've never gone back. Now, I know there's some propaganda that, oh, they're going back now, but you can draw your own conclusions. So generally, the people that are telling us about space, Prabhupada did not have so much faith in what they're telling us is being true. And I know that's controversial, but do your own research. Do your own research. Another question? Here's your big chance.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much. It was honestly a very inspiring lecture. I think it was just the best. It was the right lecture to hear. Prabhu, in the middle, you had mentioned about this is going off a little bit more detail into the spiritual world. How we have Golapandavan, and then more deeper than that for us Gaudiyas, we have Shweta Dweep, which I think is where Navadweep resides. So could you elaborate a little bit more about like that mechanics, like how does that work?
Well, I'm sure that everybody on this call is a little familiar with some type of cosmology, right? Everybody knows what a Divya Yuga is. So a Divya Yuga is the 4 ages. Satya, Treta, Dwarpa, Kali. That is the Divya Yuga. Now, in a day of Brahma or a Kalpa is 1,000 of these Divya Yugas. But Krishna does not appear in every Dwarpa Yuga. He only appears in one Dwarpa Yuga in a day of Brahma. 1 out of 1,000. And Mahaprabhu, he only comes in the 1 Kali Yuga after Krishna. So we can understand that how rare it is, how privileged we are to take birth at this time. Because in all the only way to go to Goloka Vrindavan is in this Kali Yuga. You cannot go to Goloka in any of the other Divya Yugas, 999. You go to Vaikuntha. That's it. This is the only time to go to Goloka Vrindavan. And you may go, how is that possible? Well, consider the only way you can gain entrance to Goloka is Raganuga Bhakti. That is the only way. And you can't have Raganuga if you didn't have Krishna just before in the last Yuga to do his Raganuga pastimes, to show you how those who are practicing Raganuga Bhakti are worshiping him. You have to have Rag. And Banu Maharaj, he gives a very interesting seminar saying that in ISKCON, what Prabhupada has given us is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, which means we do sadhana, but our meditation is on the pastimes of Yasoda, Nanda, Radharani, Sridham. We think about it, we read about it, we aspire after it. So you cannot go to Goloka unless you can meditate on the pastimes of Braja. So in this Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya comes and gives Braj Bhakti. And Prabhupada explains, I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of information. We know what Prabhupada has explained in some other Shastras is that there's a planet called Svetadvip where Lord Chaitanya is performing his Sankirtan pastimes eternally. And that you can simultaneously expand yourself to eternally enjoy Sankirtan pastimes and also be in Krishna Lila. So we cannot estimate our good fortune to be born in Prabhupada's movement. It is beyond conception. It is beyond calculation. We are giving a ticket to enter Goloka Vrindavan and play with Krishna and hug Krishna and kiss Krishna and wrestle with Krishna and see his beautiful smiling face, eye to eye, and hear his like clever jokes and his beautiful words in real time. And what to speak of the darshan of Srimati Radharani, right? This we can enjoy. You know that in, Prabodhananda Saraswati, in his Vrindavan Mahamrita, he says that when will Radharani look at me with tears of love in her eyes? So sometimes we think that the love of the spiritual world is just between us and Krishna. No, it's also Radharani has praying for us and all the other residents. There's love, the pastimes of love in Vrindavan ecstatic. It's not just you and Krishna, it's you and all the other residences of Vrindavan, all the trees, all the rocks, all the rivers. You have ecstatic frame exchanges. That's the spiritual world. You know that in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, so many amazing stories. When Gopal, who's the hero of Brihad Bhagavatamrita? It's slipping my mind. Gopakumar.
Gopakumar.
Gopakumar, thank you. So when he goes, I get emotional when I think about it. And Gopakumar goes back to the spiritual world. He sees Krishna, and Krishna loses consciousness. And it's explained like saliva starts to come and tears come from his eyes. And then he starts to speak to Gopakumar. And he says, where have you been? I've been looking for you. I've been wondering when you're going to come back. So Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan. He's completely self-satisfied. But the mystery is he's missing his devotees. It's causing him pain. So then Krishna again faints. And then all the residents, the gopis, they're wondering what happened to Krishna. They see this cowherd boy they've never seen before, and Krishna's on the ground with like saliva from his mouth. So then Krishna gets up again, and it's such a beautiful description. Krishna starts taking his jewelry and putting it on Gopakumar. He's taking all off his jewelry and putting it on Gopakumar. that he is feeling so much happiness to see him. Then Krishna takes Gopakumar to see Mother Yasoda. And it's said that then Mother Yasoda personally bathes Gopakumar with her own hands. And then she dries him with her hair. So it's just such a heart-melting explanation of not just, Mother Yasoda is not just loving Krishna in the spiritual world, she's loving us too. It's just a one big ball of happiness and love and mutual exchange of affection. So this is also a cosmology discussion, because it's the description of the higher aspects of the universe revealed by Srila Sanatana Goswami. More questions? You know, the old Vedic tradition is that if you don't ask questions, it means you accept everything. You have to become a cosmologist now.
Where does Karanadakshayi Vishnu reside in this? You mentioned Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and Shirodakshayi Vishnu. And then there's...
Can someone else like to take a chance, like to try to answer that?
I'm wondering, does he reside on the Viraja River? Because I think my understanding is that the river is like the boundary between the material and the spiritual world. Does he
Yes,
sit
that's
on?
true. That's right. Basically, Karanadakshayi Vishnu is another name for Mahavishnu.
Say that again. I couldn't hear properly.
Karanadakshayi Vishnu is another name for Mahavishnu.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, he spans the, so, you know, the Viraja River is separating the spiritual and material worlds. So that gives that explanation. The Lord Mahavishnu looks at Ramadevi, and then he impregnates the different universes. You know, the material energy.
Any other questions, anybody?
Actually, yes, I do have a question. I have problem conceptualizing the fact that, you know, the material world is some dark corner of the Paravyoma, because I think my problem is that, you know, when I think of the spiritual sky, I think of like Krishna's effulgence, right? And so how is it that in the brightness of effulgence, there could be any corner of darkness? So this concept of darkness coexisting simultaneously with effulgence is confusing for me.
Well, you know, Prabhupada once said, you know, Sachinandana Maharaj, he tells a story when he was a hippie and he came to hear Prabhupada speak in Germany. And Sachinandana Maharaj asked Prabhupada, he thought he had a really good question that he would stump Prabhupada because he was new. And he said, why did Krishna create Maya? And Sachinandana Maharaj said, Prabhupada roared back at him, Krishna did not create Maya, you created Maya. So metaphorically, you could ask, where does the dark desire to enjoy independently from the spiritual world? But somehow it does. Krishna gives us the opportunity to try to enjoy separately from him. So if the Lord wills it, then there can be a place for rebellious souls in an effulgent abode. It's the will of the Lord. He's doing it. It's not like a geographical thing, like, okay, here's this part, here's this part, here is the dark part. It's the Lord has made it so. So by his will, it becomes dark, just like the natural condition of the material universe is darkness. It's an artificial imposition. So I don't know if that helps.
So are you saying therefore that it's not that there is a geographical dark part of the spiritual sky? The darkness is just a matter of our consciousness only?
No,
Is
it
it?
is a dark place, but it's very, what is your good name, Prabhu?
My name is Gail. Gail. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. My name is
Hare
Abhay. So
Hare
it's
Krishna.
important to remember that many times inconceivable subject matter is explained in a particular way so we can grasp it.
Mhm.
And if you get too deep into kind of like trying to rationalize how it could be, we get complicated. It gets complicated. For example, it is said in the Shastra that Radha and Krishna were one, and they expanded to become many. So how does that work? Krishna says, never was there a time did I not exist, nor you than all these things. So how was there a time before Krishna expanded into many? So there's lots of examples where, how is it that, like, we hear stories. For example, there's a story of why Krishna has a peacock feather. And it's a Leela of how Krishna was dancing with the gopis, and a peacock, the king of the peacocks came and taught Krishna a dance, and they had a competition, and Krishna won. And the peacock, the king of the peacocks, offered obeisances, and then gave Krishna the peacock feather. And from that day forward, Krishna was decorated with a peacock feather. It's like, what? So what are you saying? Before this Leela, Krishna didn't have a peacock? No, he always had one. So how can you have originating stories? How can you understand how the conch shell became sacred when it's always been held by Lord Vishnu? It does materially from our conditioning. I mean, even just think for a second, try to really get into the fact that you have always existed.
Mhm.
Think about that.
Mhm. Yeah.
You have always existed.
Mhm.
It's like, whoa, your brain can't process it. It starts to, so
Meltdown.
it's kind of like to understand how there's a dark corner in the effulgent paravyoma. This is what we're told. So even though if you break it down, it might be hard geographically or rationally, but we accept it because this is what the acharyas have said, the Goswamis, and we just accept it like that.
Mm. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. You know that Ramanujacharya, so he wrote a book called Astottara Dinadesha, 108 tirthas in India. And when I was a brahmachari on Padayatra in 1990, we walked from Puri to Rameshwaram, a program by my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj. So we got a copy of this book, and we were trying on Padayatra to find these Divyadeshams as listed by Ramanujacharya as 108 holy places that you must visit before you die. So some of them we know, Sri Rangam is one, Janardhan is one, but some have been lost. Like there's one called Janardhan in Mathura, which nobody knows what the temple is, where the deity is. So something like 70 or so, we know where it exists. Others have been lost. And then Muktinath is one of them, where Shaladram comes from. That is also one of the list of 108. So actually, all of them are in India. There's 106. So Ramanujacharya says that 107 is in the North Pole. And he describes it. What the temple looks like, its structure, the deities in there, the different Utsava Murtis around the deities. And he makes a note. He says it cannot be accessed by normal humans. Only siddhas and yogis can go and take darshan. So was Ramanujacharya making it up? I don't think so. It's just, that's the reality. We have to understand that there are places and things we cannot access because, you know, it wasn't long ago we were just doing materialistic things. We do not have the purification. We are not like coming from a higher place. And then he says 108 is Vaikuntha. That's the last one you're supposed to visit. So, you know, that is the end of the list. It's the Lord in Vaikuntha. But we have lots of examples in this world. You can see the nature of the senses, they're faulty. You know, you see these great illusions on the internet where you see something that isn't there. So we can't trust our eyes. The problem with modern science is that they think they can understand everything just through the analysis of matter. And this is explained in the Vedic Planetarium. There are two ways to acquire knowledge in this world. And 99.9% of educational institutions, universities, schools, they teach the ascending process. That means you can understand everything that is above you by looking at matter. Matter will reveal everything. There's no such thing as subtle or spiritual. This is just nonsense. But the descending process is that we can actually receive knowledge outside of our ability to perceive, coming from higher beings, and they just tell us. And that's the way you learn, is just to listen from higher dimensions. It gets revealed to you. Now, science will tell you this is crazy. So someone may say, what's the proof? What's the evidence? Is there scientific evidence that there's a descending process? There's lots, actually. If you read the Surya Siddhanta, which is written thousands of years ago by Lord Surya, each planet has his own Siddhanta where he explains about astrology. So because the sun is the king of the planets, his Siddhanta is the most important. So in Surya Siddhanta, translated by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, that's how we got the name Siddhanta. The Lord's, it is said that Venus goes through phases like the moon. You know the moon goes through phases, right? Amavasya, Purnima, Krishna Paksha. So it says in the Surya Siddhanta that Venus goes, now this was unknown. You can't see it with the eye. But when Galilei, when he created the first refraction high-powered telescope in the 1600s, he saw that Venus had phases. And he wrote it down, and it was a huge discovery. It was unknown. So how did the Surya Siddhanta describe it? There was no telescopes at that point. Here's another interesting thing. In Africa, there is a tribe called the Dogon tribe. So for 1,000 years, this tribe has worshipped the Sirius star. It's the brightest star in the night sky. Now, in their tradition, they always said it's two stars. But if you look at it, you cannot see it's one bright star. And it was only when we got high-powered telescopes that we discovered it's a binary star. It's actually two stars rotating. It is completely invisible to the human eye. You cannot tell. So how did this African tribe, And when you ask them, where did this knowledge come from? They'll say, oh, this was revealed by like higher beings a long, long time ago to us. So there's evidence. How could they have understood? So cosmological, astrological information can be received not through telescopes and microscopes, through the ascending scientific process. You can also learn about the cosmos through the descending process explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the purpose of the museum, to open people's eyes, to not just think that it's only through ascending knowledge by studying matter and we know about the universe, but through hearing and chanting, right? It's like we look at the universe in the temple, and then we ask, how do we know this is true? Then you look down, it's the devotees doing kirtan in the kirtan hall. That's how you can understand that the Virat Rupa is real. You have to purify your consciousness, and Krishna will reveal himself. Every devotee on this call is a devotee because Krishna has given them revelation through pratyaksha, direct perception. Otherwise, we couldn't stay devotees. Every day we realize Krishna shows us that he's real. So we have to continue in that vein. So we're almost at the end. If there's one last question from anyone, here's your big chance. Thank you
I
very
just
much.
want to,
Was that something?
no, I just wanted to extend my thanks that this is a very, very interesting topic, and not much. I mean, there are some books are written now, but very interesting topic, and especially the last few revelations and explanations you gave. That's eye opener for at least for me as a devotee, that how we should take the scriptures and the instructions given by acharyas. Thank you for spending your time and giving us this spiritual knowledge. And we are very eager to be part of this TOVP marathon and one day have the darshan of that exceptional temple.
Yes. So that's a very good, thank you for bringing that up. So the current status of the TOVP, as we know, this has been beset with challenges. It's important to understand why the TOVP is so significant. And I'm glad you brought this up, because listen very carefully. This is very important. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written that when the doors of the Advaita Mandir that he foresaw, explained by Nityananda Prabhu to Jiva Goswami and to Haridas, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that when the doors open of the Advaita Mandir, that out the door will flood an ocean that will drown the world in service to Lord Gauranga. And Jananivas Prabhu told me personally that he believes the golden age doesn't begin actually until the temple opens. That is the beginning of the golden age. So you can imagine the Rakshasas that we talked about before, they've been managing the world since Krishna left 5,000 years ago. And you can see, look around. It's managed by Rakshasas. It's not an accident the way things are. Don't be naive. So, do you think they're going to give up this planet like without a fight? They know what the TOVP is going to do. So we are beset with difficulty. Like everything that's going on in the world right now has slowed the development of the temple. It's been a real challenge in the museum also. But we're moving forward. Raj Vilas Guru has told us that 2024 it's going to open. Let's hope. And the museum, it's going to be after that. It's a gradual process, and it's amazing. I have worked in many ISKCON projects my whole life. I joined in '85, and I've been involved in so many things. I've never seen like difficulty like this. It's like something is trying to prevent it. I don't want to get too conspiracy on you, but it's a huge challenge. So stay in touch. You can go on the website, but the plan is 2024. We have to see. Is that okay, Representative Prabhu?
Yes,
Oh, can I ask just one other question?
go ahead.
Sure. No charge for this one.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, after the deities are moved to the TOVP, what will happen with the place where they are residing now? Will there
Going to
be?
Pizzeria. No, I don't know. I don't know what the plan. It's a good question. It's a big structure and it's on really valuable real estate in my report. So I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu, thank you.